Hello, welcome to FM Corner. I'm Danny Koontz, Director of Relationship Management for Windy City. Today on the show, Kevin Carringer. Kevin is the Director of Facilities for Olive Garden, part of Darden. And Kevin's been on the show as a guest podcast a little while back. We did a couple episodes together. Today, we're going to kind of do something unique and reverse it. Kevin's going to lead the podcast, and I'm going to do my best to answer questions or comment on things that he mentions and so on. It's kind of unique. It was Kevin's idea. I thought it was wonderful, and I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
Well, thank you very much, Danny. Again, wonderful time to always be with you. First of all, I know this is very difficult letting someone else drive the bus, but I get to be in charge for a little while. And you just sit back, buckle in, and we'll take it easy on you. But I thought this was a great opportunity as I saw you receiving some of just the, a lot of people really wanting to shake your hand, some of the awards that we'll discuss further into our session today. But a lot of people at RIFMA that really know the impact that you've made both personally and professionally in their lives and careers. And just thought it was a great opportunity as I saw you at that microphone in the podium that say, and I know he's got a lot more to say. He's got a lot more people to thank. And I think this is a great opportunity. I wanted to take that time just to steal your show, if I could, just for us to be able to do that. So to kind of kick it off, I know a lot about you, but I think it's great to kind of give our listeners a little bit of a look into where did Danny come from? And just that whole thing of, I know everybody kind of kicks in with knowing you a lot about your career, but, I'm going to open it back up to you. My first piece of this is just kind of, tell me a little bit about Danny, how it all got started before Ruby Tuesday and even joining that organization. And we'll go from there.
Sure. Right. Out of high school and into college, I worked at Pizza Hut. And that was really kind of my first job besides mowing yards and stuff like that. And so I worked at Pizza Hut. Well, the downside of Pizza Hut, I had to work every Friday and Saturday night till 1 o'clock in the morning because I was the lowest man on the totem pole. Well,
wow.
Young, freshman in college, single, that isn't cool. And so a person who used to work at Pizza Hut had got a job at Ruby Tuesday in the commissary. And they'd call me and said, "You want to come to work over here?" Well, I got to go to school. It's like, I know. They said you could go to class and then come here and work after class. And I said, okay, what do you do in a commissary? She said, load trucks and cook big batches of food. I'm like, what kind of food? She said, quiche, brown sauce, French onion soup. I'm like, yeah, I'm your boy. I'm it. So I started doing that, and I worked in the commissary a while, and it was great. Got paid every Friday, which is critically important. And
weekly pay.
Yeah, they came to me and said, "Do you want to be the purchasing guy?" I said, "Well, for what?" And they said, "Small wares." I'm like, "What's that?" And they explained it to me. I'm like, "Yeah." And some equipment. Sure, I'm your guy. No experience, no nothing. You make a deal, right? How hard can that be? I got it. So here I go. About 6 months later, I came and said, "You want to be the facility guy?" I'm like, "Listen, I don't have that kind of mind. I don't fix things." They're like, "We don't want you to fix it. Why don't you call somebody, make sure it gets done for the right amount of money?" Sure. Why not? And we had 6 restaurants. And that started, yeah, we had 6. And so we weren't outside the state of Tennessee. So that started my purchasing / facilities career. And Kevin, I didn't know anything. And I just figured you put your head down, you work really hard.
Sure.
Opportunities will come. And so I grew in Ruby's as Ruby's grew. And that was critically important in my career because as people joined Ruby's, I knew them. I'd already been working with them. I didn't have to, "Who are you?" It's like, well, I know who you are, and I know who they are. And as it grew, and then Ruby's grew to, huge amounts of restaurant. Most people know, but you and I work together. And in the same.
I'm shocked. Initially, I'm shocked that you still claim me. So that's fantastic. That's a good start to our session today. It's a very good start.
So I worked for Ruby's. I did a couple of stints in distribution along with the facility side, and was lucky to be there for 35 years. And then changes come, and people come and go, and your time is up, and mine was up. And you succeeded me, took over the department there until your time was up. So, it's kind of how things work. But I went on and did a couple of things with an equipment dealership and then a service company. You're always taught never go to work for your friends. I did. I understand now why. And it just causes a lot of stress sometimes. And
Sure.
so I did that. I went to work for Collier Restaurant Group in 2016, which was a small family owned company up in the mountains of Tennessee. Had about
Sure.
19 restaurants in a 10-mile radius. I mean, it was great. Then COVID came. And when COVID came, they were a tourist driven company for people.
Right.
They had to make some cuts. Well, first and foremost, you make it at facilities, and that's how it happened. And then I did a podcast with Josh Sullivan, who's the CEO of Windy City, talking about cuts and how you handle that and so on. And I must have done pretty well. He liked it and offered me a job. And
I love
some
it.
of it's sales and some other things. And I've done that for right at 5 years, and we'll be retiring at the end of the month. So,
Well, I love the background. And I think before I go any further, I want to hit on the fact that small town in Tennessee, but end up having a national impact, both in the industry. And also, if you look at the legacy that will be certainly in your name and tradition at RIFMA. And so, saying that, we had a few of your closest friends, and we'll see if they're still your closest friends after today's segment. But give a quick shout out to Keith Moore, Robbie Terrell, Gordon Bruner, Debbie Kinzel, Angie G. Saylor, Lynn Hartsfinger, Tracy Thompson, Jack Quartercamp, Jack McNerney, and Terry Byerly.
Michael Zakofis.
Yes, and Michael Zagrafis. And the reason I left him out is because I work with him now.
Okay,
And
I understand.
I love to be able to jab him any way I can. And this is our test to see whether or not he listens to this. So, but each of them were kind enough that you meant so much to them in their career, personally and professionally in their lives, that they kind of had some, what I'll call some questions that they would love to get some for you to expand on. And some of them are some good advice as well. So we'll kind of take each one of them as we go.
Okay.
First up to bat is, and again, I'm not going to assign anybody their question. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to all those people could be part of the guilty parties as we go through these.
Sure.
All right. So we're going to start off with Tracy Thompson, which will tell you she wanted her name, I'm sure, up in lights. And so we're going to go ahead and give her that one last hurrah. But I think she'd like you to talk a little bit about, and I will say there is a consistent theme about Vegas and a little bit about, I think probably I should just let you expand on it.
Well, actually, I think it turns into two stories, but quickly in Vegas, Tracy had a floor of the hotel and put the staff there and so on. Well, and I was a member of the board of directors.
Okay.
And so Tracy knew that a whole group of us liked to get together and go out and have fun and hang out together and so on. And she was always worried that we would miss curfew. And so she stuck my room right across the hall from her with the believability that, that means I wouldn't leave. Well, that didn't work. I just did. I just very quietly get down, crawl out the door, then stand up, run fast as you can, and very quietly learn how to be discreet. So that program didn't work, but she tried it in Vegas. The other part is Long Beach, and it's a story told many times, and I'll do a very quick cleanup version, but
Yes, this is kid friendly. So
absolutely. I was the incoming chair for the board. And we were in Long Beach, and a very close friend, won't give out the name, called and said, "Hey, listen, I'm coming in early about 1 or 2 o'clock. Meet me at the hotel bar and we'll have a drink." Sure. And we did. And other people, as you know, start coming into RIFA, checking in, so on and so forth. Well, they come to the bar. Well, everybody's at the bar. Well, we're all just sitting there talking, drinking, so on. So that night, with some other folks, we were going to go to, you were there, we were going to the Queen Mary to have dinner. You were sick.
I don't
And
think there's any photographs of me there, but I will
but
say I was there.
yeah, some bald headed guy. Uh,
Exactly.
so we go to the Queen Mary, have dinner, drinks, everything's great. Well, then we come back. You weren't part of this, but we on the way back we stop at a piano bar, and we go in there, and there's tons of people from Ripple. I mean, everybody. And you're sitting there, and I guess overserved is probably the term that I should use. A little overserved, not paying attention, sitting there, somebody handing you a drink, and you drink it. And it got later on that night, and he said, "We got to go." Stood up, and went, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, this is going to hurt." Had to go up the street, cross the street. I was staying in a different hotel than the people that were walking with me. Didn't think that was a big deal until, and you've been on the board and you've been the chairman. When you're the chairman, you get that big room, great big room. You can put campers in there. And
It's nice.
yeah. But the hard part is you got to make that key go in that little hole so you can turn the light on the button, and it doesn't, if you don't do it right, it doesn't work. Well, I had a problem. And took a little while in the elevator, met a lot of really nice people. They thought I was the doorman. And that was great. Finally, someone helped me, and I get upstairs to the room to go to my room. Get to my room, same problem. Key in the door, it's a problem. I sit down right outside my door because I'm really just trying to figure out what to do. A person came by and helped me open the door and kind of pushed me in. For years, I never knew who it was. I was just told the story. I had no idea who this person was.
A good Samaritan in the hall.
Yeah. I sleep in the hallway and get up the next morning and come downstairs to go to the golf tournament and deliver a speech as the incoming chairman. A couple of people said, "Whoa, whoa." And I used the term overserved, but I also said something that was kind of legendary. They said, "Where have you been?" I said, "I've been a man of the people. I talk to all the people." So this goes on for several years. 5 years ago, we're in Austin and we're telling this story to people. Debbie Kinzel, who's now the executive director of RIFMA, was that person. And if you don't know Debbie, Debbie's a little small lady.
Right.
Debbie Kinzel pushed me through the front door of my room just so I could get inside the room. And I didn't know that for 5 years, but pretty good story. So,
well, I love that. I love the fact that you've got some great memories here. And I love the fact that you'll be surprised at what all came out of the woodwork on some of these comments. So let me open it up to one comment here, and then I'll let you expand on it.
mm-hmm.
So I think you can probably guess who this is once we get going. But one of the people I mentioned was just very impressed with the way that they came from the vendor side and really got a chance to, says, being from the vendor community, this person knew most of the longtime RIFMA people that do business there. And he was stuck walking around as this was his most recent show, and how many vendors and comments to make about how Danny was the first person to give them a chance at their products and services. And I think, right there, there's a life lesson in that for sure. And I'll turn it back over to you in a second, because again, I think everybody wants to hear you talk, not my Southern accent on this side. But I think there's a life lesson there in that you made such an impact on Jack Quartercamp the fact that so many people were saying, hey, Danny Koontz uses us. That means you've got credibility in the industry. That means that they already know that you're a high standards person. And so that was a reference for them. And you got to also realize at a large restaurant company, you're not going to take a flyer on somebody unless you get a chance to test them, get a chance to start small, grow it from there. But I think that says something about you also, that you can recognize when people have genuinely a good service and a great reputation, that you want to do business with them. So knowing that it's Jack, why don't you start from there, and we'll go on to the next part of his.
Sure. I always think, Kevin, one of your jobs, and you know this as a facility person, look to find the best people to partner with. And it doesn't always work, but how do you know you have the best unless you're continually kind of out there probing and so on? It doesn't hurt you. You got 900 restaurants, and you give a guy a couple of stores and give him an opportunity to do something. It doesn't hurt you, you know, if you have trust of operations. And that's one thing I was blessed with. I had the trust of operations.
That's a good
Hey,
point.
Danny, you sent us a company and it's not even good. Okay, how come? And they tell you, and you check it out. Okay, you're right. I made a mistake, but I didn't pay for that mistake, you know. And I think you always have to look for who could be better, who could fit right. I didn't necessarily take people that were great. I mean, Gordon Bruner's told the story many years. He said, how I built my company, I just walked around and said, I work for Koontz. If I can work for him, I'd work for anybody. And that was his tagline, and people were laughing about it, you know. But
There's something to be said for that.
yeah, but I mean, I think, you know, you always want to hear, always, one of the things I always told vendors when they came in, I don't need a dog and pony. Tell me who you work for. That matters to me more than anything else, who you work for. And but I just think you always have to look for opportunities. And if your gut tells you, boy, I'd like to be a partner with this person, or I think I would, why would you not try it? I think many people in facilities miss the boat with, I don't want to expand. I'm great. My people are great. Well, they could be, but how do you know? You know, how do you verify that?
How do you validate it?
Yeah, exactly. How do you do that? And so I think there were some folks that I gave some opportunities to. I think there were some folks, Kevin, even if I didn't have opportunities with them, I said, for you to be successful here at RIFMA, you need to do this. And whether that translated into business with me or not, maybe not, but still you're trying to help them. You know, this is what you should do. Here's who you should go talk to, and so on. So you try to do it either way.
Well, that comes from, we both have a lot of respect for Jack Camp.
Absolutely.
Great words coming from another leader and pillar in the industry.
Sure.
And, one of his comments is that during Danny's term on the RIFMA board, he always made it clear that we needed to make sure that we were visible and involved in the trade show, since that was the reason we could have these great meetings and events. I think sometimes certain groups lose sight of that.
Agreed.
But he says Danny lived it and insisted on it. And I think that speaks again to the caliber of what, one, you recognized that even as chair and just being on the board, you recognize that, hey, all this isn't coming together because Danny pulled it together. You recognize that a lot of people were involved in that, and a lot of people on the vendor side. Talk a minute about that.
Well, in RIFMA, the vendors are the ones that pay the money. And without those people there taking their time, there is no RIFMA. And the opportunity is to partner and to work together. In my opinion, of being on the board was, and you were on the board as well, you were chairman. I'm the same person, whether I'm on the board or I'm 3 years removed from it or 5 years before I ever got on it. You still should be, you're the same person, And one of the things for the board was, I thought was really important, you got to get out here and shake people's hands. and thank them for coming. You don't have to spend an hour at every booth, but you got to walk up and down the aisles and say, "Hey, thank you for doing this." That means a lot to those people, and I thought it was important. I always did it, and I always pushed everybody on the board to do the same thing. Is you don't have
Love
to
it.
do every aisle, but make sure a board person is going up and down each aisle and speaking to the people and talking to them. And I tried to get to as many as I could, but make sure I'm shaking hands and I'm thanking people for coming, because without them, there is no RIFMA. And that,
Well, and I think you bring up a great point. Shaking hands. How many times have we said in our current careers, half this job is being accessible, and the minute that you're not walking around the most important people, not by title, but by who's actually getting the job done. In the restaurant industry, it's the restaurant operators and it's the facility managers out there that are partnering with them. So
sure,
it's the operations team, as you know, and I think what this speaks though to is just volumes about what kind of impression you made on Jack and the fact that he knew you had high standards and knew you needed to be out there, wanted to be out there so that you could hear from the vendors how are things good? Because I'm sure you did get some feedback on occasion,
sure,
maybe certain things they didn't like about
sure,
the conference, and then it gives you a chance to change it.
sure.
So take a little bit of a lighthearted one here. So Lynn, a big, just a long-term dear friend of yours,
Sure.
that you introduced me to early on, and she's a wonderful person. But she refers to it as the blonde in the bar story. So I'll let you take it from there.
We had never met, and we were at the Gaylord in Nashville, and she had sent me an email a few weeks before the show. I was on the board, and she had said, "Hey, I'd like to meet you and do a very quick presentation, but a really meet and greet." And I'm like, "Okay." I said, I have some duties. There are some things I have to do. I have to,
Yep.
but let's figure out a time to kind of squeeze it in where we can at least meet, talk for a few minutes, and then we'll do a follow up if we need to. So I don't want to be that person. I'm too busy. That's junk to me, and it's always been junk. And I'm like, "Okay, we'll figure it out." So we get to a time, and I say, "Hey, 5:30 to 6, I got it. Like, if you can do 5:36, I can meet you." And I said, "Where do you want to meet?" She said, "We'll meet in the bar." I said, "Okay, great. I know how to get there." And I said,
You've
and
made that path a few times.
I've been there a couple times. And so I said, "Okay, that's great." And I said, "But we've never met. How
Right.
do I know who you are?" And the phone gets really quiet for a second. And she goes, "I'm the only blonde in the bar." And I said, "I'll be right there." And I walked in, and she's a blonde. She's sitting at the bar, and I walked up, and that just became a thing. I just thought it was a great line. "I'm the only blonde in the bar." Okay, I got it. And we met, and she did her presentation. We did a follow up about a month later, and we ended up doing some work together. And now our careers have both changed and stuff. But she is a dear friend, absolutely a dear friend.
I love it. What a great story. Blonde at the bar, and yet it turned into just a fantastic long-term relationship.
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of what RIFMA is all about.
Sure.
And I think that's wonderful there. All right, so here comes one you mentioned during your bio some of the changes that had gone on. Jack McNerney would like to know, hey, can you give us some advice on as people go through career changes? Sometimes they're chosen, and sometimes they're chosen for you. And we've all been on both sides of that coin. And but I think a lot of the listeners would love to hear just a little bit about what advice you would provide for those that have either, gone through that and maybe are dealing with, still trying to hang on to it. And then the other side of that is, if they haven't yet, and they might be young in their career, what advice you might give to them when they are encountering those situations in the future?
That's a great question. Jack McNerney, probably the best leader we had in RIPMA ever, and I I think a couple things. I was told a long time ago, and I remember this statement to this day. What gets you through the door to get the job will be the very same door that takes you out someday.
Wow.
And I think the thing that you have to do is, and I mean, I'll be completely transparent. I never saw rubies coming. Never. Thought I would be the last human being that locked the door when it was over. But things change. And first you have to do is no matter how hard it hurts and no matter the shock or the surprise or whatever, you have to understand it's a business, you know? And I look at a football team or a baseball team. Football team, you're a player, you're starting, you're doing great. Next year they get a number one pick, play the same position you do. Read the tea leaves. It's just a matter of time until they take over and I mean, they're at some point. Mine was basically, you've been here too long and you make more money than we're comfortable with. Okay. That's the
Change is
truth.
inevitable.
That's the truth. That has absolutely nothing to do with my ability to do the job or I didn't do the job right. This is about
Right.
money and time served. And okay. And you just have to accept it. And you have to understand it's a business at the end of the day. And if they think they can get by without you or with someone else, that's how it's going to work. And it goes on every day. And understand it and then never burn a bridge. And
great one.
always have your antennas out listening. What are you thinking? Who do you know? How do you can you look for? I think mine, I had mentioned Josh Solon at Windy City. I did a podcast with Josh. We'd never met. I did a podcast on what happens when you get let go and how do you deal with that and so on. And I hope and I believe that maybe the answers I gave that day were pretty good because he offered me a job.
I love it. Great story.
That you accepted it. You're disappointed. You're hurt. All those things. But okay, and you will move on to something else, and sometimes like in mine it took a couple of times to kind of really figure it out because Kevin, you worked right beside me. I was Ruby Tuesday all day every day, and that was life. And
I like to say if you would have cut Danny Koontz, he's going to bleed rubies.
Probably true, but understanding it, use your network of people to help you. And always pay attention, just like the football guy. If you're the starting wide receiver and they draft a wide receiver, you better read the tea leaves. It's coming. Get ahead of it. I didn't see it coming. It happened. And then from then, it was finding what I hoped was the right fit and the way to do it and understand it's going to be different. Windy City's a far different job than anything I ever done in my life. Never sold anything in my life. Still not a good salesperson, but I'm a talker to people and I understand customer service.
A lot of great transferable skills, though, that come from the facility management industry that I think you're a testament to in that you've done a lot of different things. But if you look at it, your core values are, I think you said it earlier, you are who you are. Mm-hmm. And that usually works out positively. One of the things Jack wanted to give you a shout out to and says, congrats on the well-deserved Lifetime Achievement Award at the most recent RIFMA conference. So I think talk a little bit about that, Danny, what that means to you. And hey, I only hope to be able to get there one day. So what an amazing, award, and couldn't go to anyone more deserving.
Kevin, thank you. I was shocked. Did not see it coming at all. And I thought I was just getting up there because I had asked Debbie if I could thank a lot of folks who have been very instrumental in my time at RIFMA and friendship and so on. And I thought that's all I was doing since it was my last RIFMA show. And I'll make this fast because I know you're running out of time. But for that opportunity and for such an award was just more than amazing. And I think a couple of things. The majority of the folks that you're speaking to today asking questions were there as members of RIFMA. There were some folks who used to be members of RIFMA who are not RIFMA members anymore. You know, Bruner and Christy and Cordy Camp and Josh Raines, they flew in, and this was all orchestrated. And I had no idea that they were flying in the night before to be
It was a
there
special
for.
surprise for sure.
I mean, that was unbelievable. I just think, I mean, it was, I think I had done for RIFMA anything they've ever asked. And I think that's all. When you join, it's not like, hey, I'll be in here, but I'm only doing this. No, you tell me. I'll think back to Quarter Camp a few minutes ago. Really funny story. First committee I was ever on, my leads on my committee was Jack Quartercamp, Patrick Henson. I was scared of Quartercamp. I thought I took a college class, and if I was late with my homework, I was going to like fail the class. I was going to get thrown off the committee because they were as buttoned up as two human beings I've ever seen in my life. They're great friends, both of them. And but I learned from them, you know, on how to do some things on committee work. But to receive the award, to receive it from Tracy, Tracy and Debbie, who I love both to death, but Tracy being, you know, the original executive director, and I walked her off the stage 5 years ago when she retired, and she walked me off the stage with my upcoming retirement. It couldn't get better than that, and just very appreciative of the opportunity to be a part of RIFMA, and knowing that a few things that I did hopefully kind of made a difference. But very proud, very proud.
Well, it was a great event, and I know everybody was very happy for you. We've got a little bit more time here for. Let's talk a minute about pending retirement challenges. What keeps you up at night? You're definitely someone, and you look at your past, that you love to be busy. You are you're always engaged in something. You've always got something going on. But what's on the retirement horizon?
I'm not sure yet. I know that I don't want to get up and drink coffee all day, and that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something. It's going to be very scaled down, part time, less stress.
Okay.
Is very important. More family time.
Great.
But I'm gonna do something. I've spoken to a couple of people about doing some consulting, so on. I'm going to continue for Windy City doing the FM Corner podcast even after I'm done, and a couple of, you know, maybe little consulting things short term. I don't want to be a facility guy anymore. I don't want the midnight phone calls. But could I help somebody maybe get their arms around their department or their job or something? Sure, I'd be glad to do that. Or something here in my community that's just fun, and fun being lack of stress. I don't, you know, so I can spend 15, 20 hours a week doing something that I enjoy that doesn't have a lot of pressure to it, and then still have time to do some other stuff. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to take the first month or two to try to figure out what are some opportunities I could have and do it, and fool around in something. I spoke to a couple of people at Ripman who said, hey, you want to do something when you're gone? I'm like, yeah, maybe. And, you know, do something's going to happen. Maybe I'm the Walmart greeter guy, the starter at the golf course, but something a little bit, because I got to stay busy, and I want to stay busy.
No, I love it. We're going to save our some more family pieces for our next segment, but maybe you've got time to fit in a little bit about Terry Byerly. Talks a little bit about, ask Danny about this story about attention to details.
Let me make this quick. Early on in my Ruby's career, I was asked to order carpet. And we had Ruby Tuesday restaurants, which had blue carpet back in the day, and we had an L&N Seafood Grill at the World's Fair site that had green. I was told to order 400 square yards of green carpet. My mistake, I ordered 4,000. That's a lot of carpet.
Bit of a difference.
They called me from the warehouse and told me the carpet was on the truck. So what do you want me to do? I said, reach up there and pull it off. It's one roll. It's not a big deal. The guy goes, you have no idea. There's a truckload of carpet. I'm like, I'll be there. And the warehouse was 5 minutes away from the office. So I drive over there, pull in the parking lot, look, went, oh my God. We got one restaurant. I got 4,000 yards of carpet. My boss at the time was Dan Bettis. And he said, my phone rang. He said, I heard you got a problem. I said, slight one. I'm all over it. 72 hours, I'll have it fixed. I didn't have a clue, Kevin. I called, begged. They gave me 90 days storage to hold on to it. I ended up making a deal that I swapped them the green back for more blue. So I had blue for the next 10 years to open Ruby Tuesday. But I paid for it up front. I had to work out a little bit on that. But in 72 hours, I had a plan and worked my way out of it. But what I learned was you can never check enough. And I never made that mistake again. And 4,000 yards is a lot of carpet. Got through it, didn't get fired. That was a good, but learned a valuable lesson of you just can't check enough.
A great story, great lesson there. I think that's one for the ages that, hey, every day we make so many decisions, you better measure twice.
Yep, absolutely. And then check it a third time.
I love it. I love it.
All right. I think that's about all we got, Kevin. So we appreciate the time. Kevin, thanks for doing this. We have another episode coming up for next week that we'll be doing with you. So please stay tuned for that. We got more questions and communication, I'm sure, coming from Kevin, and probably some more good stories too.